All right, welcome to Enneagram, and thank you, Catherine, for arranging this. It's awesome to be here with Eastend. So the reason why you got into the Enneagram?
Well, I had a university professor, and we were studying business psychology, and there was these personality things, Myers-Briggs, etc. And I said, how much merit do you give those? And he said, well, you should do your own research. Didn't give me an answer. So I went to the bookstore and I started looking at all this stuff. And I found the Enneagram book and I thought, this one. I thought, I'm not even spending that money unless it's really gotten there. So I had 4 friends go to the chapters and sit down with coffee, and we read. By the end of it, I knew I wanted the book and I wanted to know more. And that's how I got into Enneagram, and it was amazing. I started doing it with all my family, all my clients. Somebody showed up for coffee. I'd never met them before. I did their Enneagram just so I could get used to using it. And I just loved it. I just loved it. People liked learning about themselves, and I was learning how to use it. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, I started using it with my clients, but I didn't test it out on them first.
Yes, and she got really good with the Enneagram while we were estranged for 9 years. We are sisters, and we were estranged for 9 years, and you would never know it now. Pretty much inseparable, live on the same 80 acres of land, although she in her space and mine in the shipping container. My son also lives there in the tiny little cabin that we shared after we became non-estranged in 300 square feet for a couple of years. 300 square feet, we survived pretty well.
We did.
But at the beginning, we were unsure of each other, and it was like tentative. And so there's one personality that's called the peacemaker mediator. That's her. Mm-hmm. And
she chose it too.
But we kind of needed me to be that because we were uncertain and stuff. And then her daughters come along and say, Mom, Rusty is not anything like you. She's too organized. She never loses anything on top of her head. Even if she wore glasses, she wouldn't lose them there. She doesn't lose her keys in her pocket. She's on time all the time. She's not like you. Okay. So for a while there, they kind of, thought maybe I was the wing, because it's still related, the wings, like it goes in a circle, right? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and if you're on a 9, the peacemaker, then the wings are the 1 and the 8, and so we made me a 1 for a while. I didn't like being a 1, because 1s go to 4, which is the romantic individualist, which was our mother, and 2 of her sons, and 1 of mine. I didn't like being a 1 that had any connection with 4.
And finally I said to her, over dishes, I said, hesitantly, I said, I wanted to say something. I'm a better 1 than you are.
You do not get to talk to me about the Enneagram anymore at all. Nope.
Months went by.
She went to Florida to help her daughter adopt a wee 1 that was premature, and couldn't expect an 11-month-old to watch a premature 1 in the nursery. That'd be like watching an 11-month-old watch the grass grow and be entertained. So while she was gone, I picked up an Enneagram book and I started reading it. And I went, oh, maybe that's what I am. And then I lived with it. I didn't tell her anything at all. She came back about 4 months later and I go, I'm a 6.
I said, really? You're not negative enough to be a 6.
Yeah, because 6 are worst case scenario, but with a mother like ours, when I was really attached to Anna Green Gables, I tried saying one time with my mother, I'm having a Jonah day. What's that? She could tell by the tone of my voice. Jonah days aren't allowed in this house. I could tell right away I was in trouble. You go to your room after I explained what a Jonah day was, and you don't come out until you're happy. So all of my worst case scenario and negativity went underground.
And then after she said this, I started thinking, when we would go somewhere, we'd go to get in the car, and I'd be, maybe 1 minute late, 1 second late. It was like she was falling apart. And I said, I see it now. Worst case scenario, the car could break down, there could be too many red lights, we might get behind slow traffic. It was worst case scenario, her mind went to what could go wrong. 1 minute late was a crime.
And now the joke is that I absolutely hate my sister while I try to get her in the car, but I love her when she's in the car. So anyway, there's just a little bit of a glimpse of our personalities and what we went through to arrive at a place where we could really understand our strengths and our weaknesses. So let's quickly go through. What I like to do is there's one that's called the reformer, and they're usually a policy wonk. They love doing policy and boards, and they've got a high internal standard of correctness. They're absolutely excellent employees. If they leave, the employer needs about 3 people to replace them. But their biggest challenge in life is to know that their way isn't the only right way to do things. They can drive other people nuts with saying that, no, you've got to wash dishes this way. I mean, they can be that particular until they learn that, wait a minute, everybody else has a right way. And then the next personality, the giver, the saint, is the one that's lovely to have in a community. Lovely.
They're helpers, givers, but they can overgive, and then eventually they burn out. So I've learned with clients when there are 2 is start talking into their listening so that they start ameliorating that behavior before they get to burnout, because they just will over help and overgive.
So their biggest challenge is to learn how to say no and not resent other people for all the times they said yes. The 3 is the performer achiever. They can do almost anything, and they can win at almost anything. It drove my one great niece crazy that her sister, who was younger, could do everything better. And the saddest thing ever was when we were at the California Extensive Enneagram training, was that I would pick my people that I was going to do the exercise with according to what type they were, so that I could learn more about from them, from the inside of who they were. And the question I had to ask the 3 that I was with was, what do you need to do in order to be loved? Thank you. What do you need to do in order to be loved? And repeat until the timer went off. It was so sad. Her answers were, I have to be perfect. I can't let anyone see me without makeup. I can't even take the garbage out without the makeup. I have to get up from my hospital bed right after my heart surgery and go back to work and make sure everything's done right. That's what she needed to do to be loved. So sad. So they are so busy performing, achieving. They cut corners to get the job done, which really irritates the ones in the workplace, by the way. But their biggest challenge is to know that they are valuable just for being themselves.
Yeah, not for what they
And
do.
to slow down and to not have to be busy all the time. Now the 4s are an interesting story because they're the romantic individualists. They're lovely. They love deep conversations, intense emotions. They're creative. When they have a creative outlet, like my son with his drawing or his writing, everything's rosy and wonderful. Now, when we were first back together again and things were a little bit shaky and stuff, and my son came from BC, spends time, and he needs to go for a walk with me. He refused to eat organic, healthy food at supper because the organic, healthy food was going to make him ill. They have really interesting ways of looking at things sometimes, very individual. And so I go for a walk with him, and he's crying, he's emotional, and he goes into the garage to get a tissue to wipe his nose, and I'm quickly calling my sister and I go, you guys are right, he's a romantic individualist, I can't mother him.
I don't know what to do.
And her daughter, who is an 8, which we'll get to that in a moment, but you'll get a little hint of what an 8 is like, she takes the phone and she swears, because they won't give up their colorful language, shut the fire truck up. Okay, I kind of, toned down my language. They went, okay, this is what you do. Because she had a lot of practice. Her 2 brothers, her sons, are also romantic individualists. She said, what you do is when they have really interesting ideas and they sound a little off the wall, because, my brothers did this, is that you go, that's really interesting. And when they're not looking, you stick your whole fist in your mouth and you gag. That's how you do it, is what she said. And it actually has been a lot of help, because I say, wow, that's really an interesting, different way of looking at things. How do you think other people might look at that? And then we can get into a conversation and I don't have to stay on his track. But when he has his creativity going, he's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Just like your son too.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the 5s, which her lovely husband.
Oh, yes. If you've ever met a friend, or if you've in this situation and you've hardly ever had company at your house because your husband isn't really into company, he's probably a 5. I met a woman out in Ontario They hadn't had company in 20 years. She was a hairdresser. That's where she got all her visiting done. If we had So my husband's a 5, and if you want to have a good conversation with him, you stand with your hand on the doorknob like you're just itching to leave.
I
You
do
can have
that.
a wonderful conversation. Don't sit down though, because then you'll get anxious that you're going to overstay your welcome.
And I do that. I actually have my hand on the doorknob. He tells better stories than my brothers. He gives better hugs than my brothers. He is absolutely amazing, gives better words of praise, words of affirmation than my brothers. And I
And
would
he's
never
humble.
starve on a desert island.
He's humble.
But if I need to get away from him in the middle of a story, all I have to do is look like I'm going to sit down and stay. He said, "Oh, well, we better go now. I've got to have a nap now." And but he's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. The 6 is me that we were hinting at a little earlier, and we have a couple of different monikers for the 6. It's the loyal skeptic, the worst case scenario, the one that's anti-authority. That's me. I don't like being told what to do. If you ask me really nicely, I'll do anything, but tell me what to do and I'm busy. I'm like, I gotta clean my fingernails, wash my hair. But as I said earlier, the worst case scenario, that all went underground. And when I realized that, as I started learning about my personality, I didn't want that negativity to be part of me anymore. And I still catch myself sometimes if somebody cuts me off on the highway, an hour and a half later, I can still be imagining, they're calling my family that I'm being rescued by the jaws of life with a crushed vehicle. And it's like, these things go on in my head. And I had to start catching them to be able to turn it around. Didn't happen. Because our imagination can put our body through the same amount of stress as if it's really happening. And that wasn't good. So as soon as I started to get more of a handle on that, I had less digestive issues. Knowing our personality can really help in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. And then the 7. The 7 is the adventurer. They love to taste everything,
That's my way.
Experience everything, go anywhere, do this, do that. And they try to push all the negative way back there. They don't want to look at it. And that's where they fall down, because they're so willing to look at only the positive that they don't really weigh in on the negative. And you need to do that. You need that balance.
Yeah.
So that's their big challenge. But they're fun to talk to. Some of my best friends, my best friend is a 7. And we meet because we're very mentally 7-ish. And so we really can connect that way. So
Fun is a word they use almost every
fun,
sentence.
Yeah.
That's
If you hear someone use the word fun a lot, they're probably a 7. Not necessarily, but probably.
If they go to the highest ticket items in a store, they're likely a 7. That's one of their things too that they admit to.
They want a parking space right in front of where they're going, they're probably a 7.
Yes. But one of the things that I thought was really cool is when I came home from a trip with one of my professional writer friends, and her daughter and her husband came to pick us up from the airport, and her daughter and I are in the back seat, and I'm talking about the 7 because I have a feeling she's a 7. And I start talking about how you put all the hard stuff off so you can have all the fun, but it's going to come back and bite you in the butt. It's going to then ruin all of your fun if you don't take the time to deal with some of the stuff that's not so much fun. That's me. I was so interested in doing all the fun stuff and all the partying that I didn't do my math, and now I have to do a tutor, and now I can't do any of the fun. And she really saw herself in that. So I said, and you can temper that. Just, don't set yourself up to have this big fall where you have to really give up all the fun. Just do the little bits of the things so that it never piles up and gets you. And she thought that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Now the 8.
Now the 8. My daughter's an 8. Our dad was an 8. My first husband was an 8.
Mine too.
And 8s, you cannot give them a brown paper bag and ask them to carry it 1 block, because they can't do it. They'd be too curious. They have to know what's inside. Don't give it to them.
No, they also can't keep a secret.
Yeah, but they're if they're mad at you, they just spill it all out. They can stomp and scream and curse and stomp around, but it's gone as soon as they're done. And they give you a hug. There isn't an ounce of anger in it. They're so done. they clear like that so fast.
Unless you run away from them like I did.
Yeah, if you really, they can cut off from you.
They can
When
feel
they cut
abandoned.
off, they cut off.
Yeah.
To get back into my daughter's good graces, she had to really prove that she wasn't going to disappear again.
Remember that colorful language? Can I tell one of her stories here? It was really colorful, okay? And I'm probably going to have to tone it down a bit because we're going to do the video in case other people want to watch this. Yes, I had to work really hard to get in her good graces because I had hurt her and the people she loved deeply when I was estranged from the family for 9 years. Very deeply. And so after she had children, that was my way back in. I loved her children and and spent time with her children. Her heart started to open back up again. And one time I said, I really just want this to be the last apology. I'm never doing that again. I'm never cutting off from the family again. I'm never letting a man convince me that my family is dangerous to me. And he was 05, by the way, that one. He didn't, his family was too noisy for him, let alone mine. Oh, wow. And she said, that's a good thing, because if it ever did, I'd come out and drag you out by the...
Short and curlies.
Yeah. So, colorful language. They won't give it up, but they'll defend you. If you are in their inner circle, they will go to bat for you. They may not win every fight they go to, but you will damn well know they've been there.
Yeah, and you have to stand up to them because if you wimp out, they will not like you.
No.
I have a set of clients that he's an 8, she's a 6. She's always wimping out, and he just wants her to stand up to him. And I told my daughter that one time when we're driving. She starts dialing her phone. I said, what are you doing? She said, I'm phoning out. And I said, what for? I just told her this, that you have to stand up to an 8. And she said, I'm phoning him to tell him that if he doesn't stand up to me, I think I'm right all the time.
Yes. Mm-hmm. We did that also with my friend from high school. She was a 9, the peacemaker, and her husband was an 8. But when he was at work all day long, he was in his 5 security aspect, leading the people, managing the job site, doing everything without going to his guns, great guns like the 8s will. A challenger boss is one of their monikers. And when he came home, he wanted a good rip-roaring discussion and debate, and she would retreat, and he would feel abandoned.
She was a 9.
And they were able to sort things out, knowing that about themselves. So that brings us to my lovely sister.
Yeah, my personality. 9s can give up their agenda. I could have a bill to pay, but if I was in a car with my friend and the bank was right there and she went off and she was going to be gone maybe 15, 20 minutes, didn't know how long, I wouldn't go in the damn bank and pay my damn bill. I just let my agenda slip to the side.
Even more than that, you've let your agenda for your book go how long?
Yes,
because everybody
too.
else demands your time and attention. So
Yeah,
I'm really glad that she gets to be
That is the flaw of a
here.
9, in case you didn't notice it already.
And now, knowing that about my sister, when I ask her, what do you want to do today? As much as I know right now what I want to do, I have to wait and wait
Yeah.
and wait.
And that's an important part about having a 9 in your family is when you ask them a question, give them the time to answer it. Otherwise, you'll never get an answer. Because once you start talking again, they're listening. They're not thinking of an answer to your question. They're listening. So you won't get one. Give them the time to answer.
And they have to ramble sometimes to get to their point, which also is a challenge for me. But I manage because I love her. So that is our stories about the 1 to the 9. We're going to stop this so people can talk freely. Thank you very much for listening to that. I hope it was entertaining and enlightening and fun. And I want to find out what made you two laugh when we're